Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. I have a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it reads like this. Hello my brother, how are you? I want to confess that I am a witch. Growing up, I was raised by my grandmother. My mother died in quite a strange way, and after the death of my mother, one night, my brother, I don't even know how to explain that feeling on that night when I woke up, because I woke up in the middle of a graveyard. I was really scared because when I woke up, I was not dreaming, but physically, my grandmother somehow had managed to get me out of the house and took me to the graveyard. It was me, my grandmother, and other elderly women that she was standing with whilst we were standing in the middle of a graveyard. I was really scared. And the reason why I was really scared, it was because I could not even communicate with my grandmother. She spoke in a different tongue. And from that moment, that is when I realized that my grandmother had chosen me to become a witch. And my grandmother, she was the one who had sacrificed my mother, because what they did on that night was that my grandmother said a few words in that strange language that she was using. Then, like magic, I saw my mother's coffin as it was coming out of her grave. They didn't even dig open the grave. The coffin just magically appeared on top of the grave. Then my grandmother instructed this other young lady who was there to go and open my mother's coffin. And when she did, I saw my mother climbing slowly out of her coffin. She was like a woman who was in a trance. After she had climbed out of her coffin, she lay down on the grave. That is when my grandmother was handed something that looked like a butcher's knife. Then they started to cut her up into several pieces. My brother, I am here to confess all the things that we do when it is time for us to offer our sacrifices. If you were to come across me, you will never for a moment think that I am a witch, but I was chosen to become like this from a very young age. When I was still a young woman, I would be sent by my grandmother to collect some stuff from our neighbors' houses, and she would instruct me on what I was supposed to steal from our neighbors. So most of the times I would steal clothes that would be on the washing line, or shoes that would have been left outside. And my grandmother used to pour charms in those shoes that I would have brought. And sometimes she would pour a little bit of charms on the clothes that I would have stolen from our neighbor's house. And after my grandmother would have finished her work with the clothes and the shoes, then I would return them back to our neighbor's place without them ever noticing. My grandmother taught me how to make a woman have continuous miscarriages. What she would teach me was that the first thing you need to get hold of is that woman's panties or anything that she wears underneath her skirt. And once you have done that, then you proceed to the next ritual of making very small holes on those panties using a small needle. So this ritual, when it is done, it means that the woman's womb will not be able to support life anymore. I did this once to a woman who came and stayed at the place where I was renting at that time. I tried honestly to be a good person. Even though I am a witch, it's not like everyone that I meet I would try to bewitch that person. I try as much as I can to be good to people, but there is a red line that if you cross that red line, then it means that we have to fight, and you are never going to win that war. So when that woman came to stay at the place where I was renting, I saw from the onset that this was the jealousy wife. Then she started to gossip about me, saying that I had tried to seduce her husband, which was a lie. And by doing this, she had crossed the red line. And once we have crossed that red line, then there is no way for me to control the spirit of revenge that resides in my body. And once that spirit of revenge has been woken up, then it can only be comforted by human blood. Since me and that woman were now sworn enemies, I couldn't get anything to bewitch her because there are certain rituals that requires physical contact. That is why most of the times when someone wants to bewitch you, it's either they will invite you to their house or they will find means so that you can invite them to your place. In most cases, if they just come without being invited, then sometimes the charms will not work. The charms, most of the times, they work if the person has invited you into their house. In that way, you can leave the charms and the charms can work. I tried for several months to break that woman's marriage, but I failed because the kind of a ritual that I was supposed to perform upon her life, it required physical contact. I tried all that I could, but I failed until one evening when I woke up in the spirit and I went and I joined my friends who are witches at our meeting place, which was just next to a tree that was next to a place where two roads crossed. The reason why we meet in such places which are close to a place where two roads cross, the reason why we meet at such a place, it is because we try by all means to make sure that when you are supposed to meet your blessings, what we do is that we wake you up by magic and we will lead you to those crossroads and we will convince you to take a wrong turn. And we will make you to follow a path where you will be unable to meet your destiny. And in most cases, my brother, you only have one opportunity in this life. It's like a spark of life when your life can be changed for good. Because God gives us all breakthroughs, but out there are forces that make sure that you don't get to enjoy those blessings. Usually, if all of a sudden a couple just breaks up for no particular reason, then the hand of the devil will be at play. That woman that I bewitched, she had lived for a number of years without a relationship that could last. It was because she had came across her husband once, the husband that she was created for, and because the man at that time was not the man of her class, she then denied him. But when she had gone around looking for love, and after she had faced a lot of heartbreaks, dating a lot of guys, that is when she finally agreed to date that man, even though deep down in her heart, she kept on regretting as to why she had agreed to get married to that man. But what she didn't know was that the man whom she was now staying with was the man whom she was created for, and that man was the one who held the keys to her destiny. It was only that the blessings that were sent by God to her had not reached them yet. When she came to stay at the place where I was renting, she was actually guided there by evil spirits. What that woman didn't know when she started looking for a place to rent without the knowledge of her husband, even though they had actually spoken about that. But when her husband was at work, that is when she went around the location looking for another better accommodation. Then the evil spirits were the one that guided her so that she can come and stay with me at the same house. And when she came and started staying with me at the same house, that is when I was given an assignment to bewitch her. This was after she had gossiped about me. My advice to people out there is that never insult anyone, because by insulting one who has the spirit of witchcraft, you then give her the reason to attack you spiritually. And when she said that I had seduced her husband, I cursed her. I was angry for speaking evil against me, and I was then given the permission to bewitch her. And usually we get to work with one of your relatives whom you share the same bloodline with. And if your relative, if he or she be a witch, will be the one responsible to speak with your ancestors on our behalf. Everything in the spiritual realm follows a set of rules, and we know how to manipulate those set of rules. If you are a witch, it's only that you know how to manipulate the set of rules that were set by God. Let's say if I pray today and if I cry to God for him to let it rain, he will go back to his promises of allowing it to rain on earth. But when it rains now, that is when we will manipulate the forces of nature and let thunder strike whom we want it to strike. As we stood by our meeting place, I was told that for the charm to work, I needed physical contact with her, and I had to use her panties. As for her relatives, it was really unhelpful. The demands that were put before us was too much to be accepted. So I agreed to use her panties with the risk of me getting caught physically. This lady, she had that odd behavior of forgetting her panties outside for a day or two. After wearing them for several hours, I would then return them back to the washing line, but this I would do after sprinkling some herbs on her panties. After I had performed these rituals, I then looked for another accommodation at another complex, and I left her knowing that I had damaged her womb for life. So I chose to remove myself from her immediate environment because I was now like her closest enemy, whom she was going to suspect. So in order for me not to be suspicious, I had to remove myself from her immediate environment. Oh, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by Anonymous. Then I had to ask one of our admins to give us a translation.